All right, so today is Tuesday. It's August 2nd, 2016, and we are here still in Wayne County, Ohio, near West Salem. We're at Dean McIlvaine's place, but right now we are talking with Dennis McEndree, and he is an organic vegetable farmer from outside of Marshallville. Is that right? Around this area. I'm Jess Lamar Reece Holler, and this is an interview for the Ohio Ecological Farm and Movement Memory Project. Dennis, could I have you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about who you are.
I'm Dennis McEndree, and was born in Wayne County about 59 years ago, and moved to my grandparents' farm 58 years ago, and I'm still there.
Tell me a little bit about what your grandparents had going on there.
Well, my grandparents were dairy farmers, and my grandfather was from Croatia, and my grandmother was from Czechoslovakia. And my great-great-grandfather had a farm in Clinton, Ohio, which they were actually dairy farmers also, and their last names were Cormish, and they bottled their own milk. So they were bottling milk and selling it in town. And my grandma was the oldest of, I think, what was it, 9 kids. And she met my grandpa in Yoder's greenhouse in Barberton, Ohio, and so that was the first man she could find, and she grabbed him and got married and moved out. She was the farmer, he wasn't. He was a uneducated paper boy from Akron, Ohio, and he had worked at Firestone then later on, and as they were farming, so he knew nothing about farming much. It was my grandma; she was the farmer. So, and then on the side, she sold bedding plants and vegetables. So she taught me how to make compost and make bedding, sell and produce bedding plants in kind of the old-fashioned way. So in 1992, I was the first one, probably the state of Ohio, to be certified selling bedding plants. So it was kind of an interesting concept of what went on there. So I just kind of took over her vegetables and just kept going.
What happened in between? Were your parents involved in any way?
We always lived on the farm. So there was 6 of us kids, and so we played on the farm all day long as they were milking. They finally retired in '73. So then my parents took over the farm for a while, and then I took it over. I think I took it over probably around the early '80s, and just been working it ever since.
Now, growing up, did you think you'd be involved in agriculture?
I don't know. We were in agriculture, so I didn't. It never dawned on me. So we always had big gardens and farms. So I just never thought much of it. So.
You said your grandparents, before we started the recording, so they'd always farmed organically. They never made the switch over to big conventional.
No, they were always organic farmers. I mean, it's coming from the old country. That's how people farmed. They didn't. Chemicals were. That wasn't part of their. They just it worked for them, so they just stayed with it.
Were they farming when your grandma sold bedding plants and things like that? Was she also selling and marketing vegetables commercially?
No. She just back then, people from all over would come in and buy right at the farm, so there really wasn't much going on with farmers markets. It was just kind of old style farming, and a lot of people planted gardens back there. Everybody planted gardens, so they needed bedding plants. And then people that didn't plant, people still canned. So they came and got tomatoes and peppers and other things.
When you say bedding plants, you mean like little baby
starts?
Plants?
Yes, yeah.
Interesting. So tell me a little bit about the influence of the old country. Did your grandparents grow particular varieties or crops, or in certain ways that were influenced by Eastern Europe?
Well, basically organically, because they always dairy cows and old farming was different than what it is now. They were always small farms, and small farms were pretty much what we call now permaculture, because all the old Europeans came over, so they had berries. They had apple trees. They still made their own grapes or applesauce, and so plus they also had gardens and plus dairy. Also, it's kind of like the Amish, but they weren't. They were like my parents, my great grandparents. They were basically Jews, but when they came over, they didn't want people to know they were Jewish, so they were Greek, or they turned into Greek Orthodox. So that's what because they didn't want people to know that they were Jewish.
Was there a big population of folks from Croatia.
Yes, yes.
Here.
Croatia and Croatia. Well, Czechoslovakia was Barberton area. There's a lot of Czechoslovakians. So.
Why did your family come over from Croatia, Czechoslovakia?
It was just the hard times over there. Everybody was migrating. My grandma actually she was born, I think, right around 1914. She was born in New York, and then her mom took her back to Europe, and she stayed there till she was 10. She actually lived in Europe with my great-great-grandfather, and basically it was like, you ever see the movie Fiddler on the Roof? That's how they lived. So they all lived in town. Thatched roofs, potatoes under the bed, fire in the middle. They smoked all their meat up high because the fire was there, so they hung on the meat because of the thatched roofs, all the smoke would go out. And then they had crocks of plum butter, crocks of sauerkraut, and apple butter. And then right outside the back door is where the stables was. So actually the animals helped keep the house warm in the wintertime. And then out beyond there was the barn. And in the summertime they slept in the barn in the haystack all summer long. But their farm was, some of their fields were 5 miles away. And then they had a lot of almond trees and nut trees over there. And my grandma, she talked about where she used to have to sit underneath the nut trees and guard them when they were ripening so people wouldn't steal them. So then she came back here when she was 10 years old with her aunt. Her aunt brought her over, and she learned how to. Her teacher actually taught her how to speak English by reading the Bible. So my grandmother was, and then they went back to the Clinton farm, which they had a 250 acre farm over there in Clinton, and so they had it was a permaculture, giant, just all kinds of apple trees, berries, your grapes, your raspberries. Because I remember pear trees. I remember back in the '60s going over there and picking.
This is not the same farm.
No, this is a different farm. Yeah.
But this was the original.
Original farm, yeah, the Cornish farm, which my grandma Katona grew up on.
What happened to that farm?
It was taken over by the youngest of my great uncle, who's the youngest. He inherited the farm, and then he finally sold it. And he moved to California.
So the land you're at now, how did that come about?
Now it's a housing allotment. Some rich guy bought it and turned it all into houses.
But that wasn't your grandma's last farm.
No. I live on the last one. We got 41 acres. So.
Tell me a little bit about what you guys do at your farm. What's it called again?
Katona's country. Right now we're not doing anything because I've kind of being part of the Jewish heritage. It was the last. It was a Shemitah. Shemitah is that every 7 years you let your land rest, and let God provide for you. So I just let it rest. And we haven't got started. I took another farm manager's job that didn't pan out. So nothing has gotten done in my farm this year.
But that's a tradition that you let it rest.
Right. Yeah, every 7 years. Yeah.
Can you tell me more about that and what that's meant in your family?
Well, that's just part of the Jewish heritage. Every 7 years you let your land rest, and so because God will provide for you. So if you have any, I guess it's part of the Jewish faith. And, we don't practice that, but it's just part of the. I do that. The rest of my family doesn't. So.
What do you do about your orchards?
I don't have orchards. I just have some berries. Yeah, the orchards were on the great grandparents' farm in Clinton, Ohio. So. It's always been very interesting, and then watching the whole organic industry come up through watching it through the 80s and the 90s, and how it's progressed now. So
can you tell me about just that actually?
I don't know. I guess when you're born into it, you just take things for granted. Everybody around me our neighbors were all conventional farmers. But the neighbors across the street, they were Hungarian also, so they had apple orchards, all the berries. And we used to go across there, eat green apples, and walk into the cow pasture, eat, pick green apples, and and walk over to where the cows, the salt lick for the cows, and rub our apples on them to eat the salt. we never, we never thought much of about the cows that had just been licking there, and so. But then we go raspberries, gooseberries, blueberries, pear trees, all kinds of apple trees. That's just the way Europeans grew up around here when they came over. They actually were permaculturists, and everybody forgets all about that. They think permaculture is new, but it's really not. Yeah, and a lot of farmers, they had less than 100 cows, and they had loafing sheds where they all baled straw and bedded their animals down. We didn't have the big manure pits and the liquid manure. That wasn't part of the concepts. And actually, your small farmers were your environmentalists. They're the ones that kept this country clean, kept the air clean, kept the waterways clean, and everything else because they had to, because they were just small, so they had to actually they had to practice good farming techniques, and they were ecologists. Not now like these big gigantic people that own 5,000 and 10,000 acres, and rent all kinds of land. So it's just farming has changed. It's all about money.
Can you tell me a little bit about growing up and into your kind of teenage years in your 20s? How did you see agriculture change around you from the way your parents and grandparents?
Well, the farmers got older. The farmers got older, and then that's when they started. I guess probably the change. My grandparents, they retired in '73, so and then a couple of the neighbors, they were doing loafing sheds, but then the one neighbor, he got a little bit bigger, and then so he started using a manure pit. So he wasn't the cleanest farmer around, but the neighbor across the street he was still bedding his cows, and still cows are still in the pasture. He was an old Hungarian, and he used to call his cows all the time. He always had a song that he sung to them.
Do you remember it?
Oh yeah, well, it was just kind of like, come on, come on, come on in. He'd stand there, and those cows, they'd come out of the pasture, and they'd have to go across the road, and so he was a pretty interesting farmer. So they always had, and their place was clean. They spent a lot of money, keeping the barns painted, and they were good farmers. They did well. So he retired. Passed away, and so they had 4 kids, so the farm kind of got split up between all the children. So, and then parts of it, half of it's been sold. But as it changed, it just changed. I guess probably the way it changed is that the milk prices went down, and so the small farmers were forced out. And so then they either went out of business or somebody bought their land. So it just changed so much, And the Reagan years were hard on small farmers. They decided that's how they fixed the budget. So they picked anybody under the line was out of business. They couldn't get credit. So it hurt. I was back in the mid '80s. So, but growing up, we spent time. I worked for 4 farmers, all summer long when I was a kid, and we were in the woods in the hay mows, and that's all we did. We had a good time. Baling hay. We always thought that was kind of cool, and working on the farm, doing silage, chasing the cows and fixing fence. It was just part of But we didn't live on the farm. My parents lived out. They lived out at the end of the driveway, next to the road. So we had an acre there. So.
What line of work were your parents in?
My dad was a union electrician, and my mom was just a homemaid, or whatever you want to call them. She would stay home with 6 kids. So.
Did your dad see an opportunity for himself in agriculture?
No. My dad was a union electrician. That was it. He tried, but he just never. He tried for a few years and failed very, very much at it. So us boys pretty much ran the farm when he was farming. So we had some beef cattle and a couple milk cows. But that's my brother and I. He's 2 years younger than I, and we did all that work. So we did the plowing, the disking, the combining, and we're young kids. Here we are in our teenagers. We're doing all that work because my dad was he was working. He liked sitting around with his buddies. He never came home that much. So It was good. We learned a lot. But the agriculture has changed. And it's going that way. But the corporations are trying to step on it really hard, as you can see. And that's why the farmers markets are so successful. But it's still not to where all the small farmers are still struggling. Don't let anybody kid you. They got second jobs, or else the wife works and she carries all the insurances. So it's not. And when our country lets imports come in, that's all you have to say. We'll look at everything you buy is imported. So.
A lot of this electronics in a house.
Well, a lot of electronics, so then a lot of the food is too. So but the best, certified organic isn't perfect, but it's the best we have.
So tell me about that. Actually, how did you go from helping your grandparents out growing up, helping your dad out, to being a farmer? What was that path like?
Fun. I always liked farming, and so then I helped my grandma quite a bit in the garden, and then I had the opportunity. Well, actually, I ran into Phil Neighbors of the owner seat of the mustard seed market, because I was actually selling vegetables to other places for about 4 years there, conventional grocery stores, excuse me, and so I actually was working as an electrician, and when Philip and Margaret built their first store, I got to know Philip a little bit, and he's the one that pushed me into become certified organic.
So give me a sense of the timeline. Straight out of high school, did you train to be an electrician? You were also running the farm, your grandparents?
Yeah, well, I was doing several different things. I was actually racing motorcycles as a motorcycle mechanic professionally. I worked for Husqvarna for a while, and so I kind of traveled around.
When did you start farming full time?
I would say about 80, full time, probably about 88, 89, somewhere around there.
It's the same 40 odd acres?
And I was working as an electrician because you still need money. So I'd work all day as an electrician and work till dark, and on the weekends on the farm. So
when you started out, you're in control of your grandparents' farm. What are your practices like? What are the options that were available to you in that point?
Well, the only options I knew was organic. I didn't know. I knew nothing about chemical farming. So it's making. We use all natural products because we knew nothing about chemical products. Then I ran into Harold Hartzler from the Hartzler Family Dairy in '92. Well, I think 1990, and I started buying his his all natural products, and I've been using their products ever since.
What kind of products?
They use gypsum and a pelletized gypsum that comes from Iowa. It's probably the best in the United States, and a pelletized lime. So the Hartzler family, they actually have been selling amendments since they've been organic, and they've been organic for, I think he started in the mid '60s. So I used to listen to stories about train car loads of organic products that they would bring in.
Very early on.
Yes.
So when you got started, you said you'd never known anything but organics, but you didn't have an organic market. You were selling conventional.
Right. There wasn't that much of an organic market, and basically mustard seed was probably one of the first organic markets in this area to really open up.
So what did that change for you?
Opportunity to more education, to look further into the organics. We always organics, because I have a whole collection of Rodell organic gardening magazines. It's organic farming and gardening magazines, what they were called. And so my grandma had all those, so I got her collection. So, which is very interesting because just some of the stuff that's in there is just all the basic, and people would write in and experiments and about organic gardening. So a lot of stuff has been tried and by the Rodells, or else people that they have recipes for all kinds of different things, natural pesticides or fertilizers, or just a little bit of everything. So it's actually, or how they grew their strawberries, or how to plant asparagus, just all in the organic way, the natural way. So, and that's all. So we read those, and that's all we know. And people like John Tobe, also, he's from Canada. things that he talked about, and so who else? I mean, there are just so many different people that over the years that the names have been forgotten by so many people.
No, but when your grandparents were farming, I'm curious, did it seem like it was a countercultural identity or an identity to be organic?
No, we did. I mean, no, we didn't. We knew nothing about that. That was just a lifestyle. It's a lifestyle. That's how it came from your great grandparents, and it was just passed on. So it's just a lifestyle that how we grew up.
When
Like
did it
that.
become, or did it ever become sort of an activist gesture for you, or something contested?
Probably after I got certified, in 1992. Then you started learning more and talking, meeting more people like Philip and Margaret, and then meeting other people that other organic farmers. Going to OFA, and Acres Conference. First Acres, Dean drugged me to an Acres Conference in 1992. It was like, wow! I sat there for 3 days with my mouth open. It was just incredible, just what was going on, and just opened my world up, and and then you start learning, and why, what's the problem with people's health, and we all know that, and it's what you eat.
Now, before you found Acres USA and OFA and some of these networks, had you made a lot of connection between food and health?
Only through Rodell. Organic, or their magazines, and they also prevention. They also had another magazine called Prevention Magazine, which was their like kind of vitamins and health magazine. So my mom, both my mom and my grandma. My mom had prevention, and my grandma had organic gardening. So it was just there was just a lot of information. That's how we grew up. I mean, it was a lifestyle, is what it's about. It's a lifestyle. And so when you grow up like that, you don't know it. You just don't. That's just the way how you grow up. And so all these other things, But I went more into the organic. So it kind of, I was the only one in my family that went that way, because I was so much more interested in farming than because I have 2 brothers and 3 sisters. So I'm the one that stayed up at the farm, even though my 2 other brothers they have houses on the farm also.
So when you started finding these networks through Acres and OFA sounds like in the early 90s, what was going on at the time? Do you remember what the key issues were for organic farmers, or for you?
Well, it was kind of a unknown thing. From a lot of people had no clue. I mean, everybody thought that that food was safe because there was well, I mean, the mindset is kind of like it is now. And now, because organics has been, since the government took it over and it's been growing every year, you still have those mindsets out there from people that really don't have a clue. They just think well, if it was bad, the government wouldn't let them use it, in the chemicals. And so that's just a kind of mindset, well, it's too expensive to buy. And it's no different. And that's the way it was back then. So, well, don't the Amish aren't all the Amish organic? Questions like that. And it's the same thing that was going on back then is still going on now. I mean, it just I guess being in it for so long, sometimes you just giggle, and because you turn on the television, well balanced breakfast, Cheerios and orange juice and toast, in the morning, it's good for your heart. So, and and it's the big there's a lot of very powerful people out there, and it's all real old money. So how do I can make $1 million off a penny? So it's the same mindset. So it's it's like they say in the motorcycle industry. If you have a $5 head, wear a $5 helmet. So so the same with your body. If you don't think that your body is a temple of God's, well, then you just keep eating, poison food, chemically laced. It's like, if to have a skull and crossbone on it, you probably shouldn't be sprinkling it on your salad. So that's just the way it is, and it's not really that. It's not more expensive. It's because your body it's amazing how resilient our bodies are. The toxins and chemicals and parts per million that's in the food that we eat. Items that are how they're made, and plastics, and you know, makeup and hairsprays and soaps, and people they're not sitting there making soap out of lard these days. We're not eating good things like lard sandwiches. So they say if or butter. They say if when you eat your butter toast, and if you're not leaving teeth marks in the butter, you don't have enough on your toast. So it's eat more butter. So, and it also goes with our fresh milk, fresh cow's milk. It's just unpasteurized. People, it's illegal here in Ohio, in a lot of other states, unless you belong to a herd share. So, and so it's just all. See, years ago we either milked our own, or else we just went over to the neighbors and just took the jar and opened up the bottom of the bulk tank and filled it up and took it home. And it was never, they never said anything. It was, we only take a couple gallons a week, so it's no big deal. See, now they throw a fit about anything like that if they caught you. So they have herd shares, and there's nothing wrong with the milk. And it was all back in the, well, actually, it's kind of the history of of milk is when they started homogenizing milk. That's when heart disease started. So there's a lot of history in agriculture.
So I have to ask you. So you grew up. I'm really interested because you grew up in this organic lifestyle, and it was just a way of life.
It was, yeah. We knew we never thought much of it because that was just a lifestyle that my grandparents promoted.
But it also seems like once you got older, you started realizing, wow, Cheerios on the TV, that's supposed to be good. Wow, disease connected to homogenized milk. So did you, at some point in time, did you reflect back on how you grew up and say, whoa, there was a set of values there?
Oh yeah, I'm healthy. I mean, the only time I ever go to the doctor is to go to. I have my doctor. He's a DO, which he actually does he's a chiropractor also as an MD. So I go in there and get adjustments. $15 copay. And I don't. So it works out real well for me. And I very rarely. I never get the flu. Never. I'm not sick. I eat well. I don't take vitamins. I spend my money on good food.
How do you eat? I'm always curious to ask people who farm in certain ways how you feed yourself.
Well, knowing people like Dean, I kind of trade work for food, So like I grind my own. I get spelt from Dean, and I grind my own spelt. So then after I grind it, then I sift it, and so what comes out of the siftings, but the germ, I use that for hot cereal in the morning. I bake my own bread every week. So I have, today I had organic spelt bread with organic mayo, organic cucumbers, and organic tomatoes, and organic cheese for lunch today. So just that kind of lifestyle. So we eat organic food, and just a lot of the basics, raisins and nuts, and anything. It's pretty much anything we like. My wife, she's a good cook, so that helps out a lot. So, and then growing your own food. So actually, you have, and then you can canned peppers, you can tomato. We make a V8 juice every year. Probably about 60 quarts of that, and canned asparagus if we have that, and freeze tomatoes, freeze peppers, freeze onions. Freeze green beans. So it's just trying to save, grow and save everything you can. Grow winter squash, freeze zucchini. So there's just a lot of things, and then I get the fresh milk. I either get fresh milk from a dairy farmer, or else we buy Hartzler's, which my wife likes. She likes Hartzler's. She doesn't like the whole milk like I do. So, and then we, lots of butter. So it's just a simple lifestyle, nothing elaborate, and it's all about health.
Do you do other things in your life or in your family to take care of your personal health? Other things that are really important to you?
I brush my teeth every day. I take a shower once a week, no matter if I need one or not. No, just kidding. I use natural soap. I just use a natural soap that just a bar soap, and just I don't use any. In our house, the most toxic chemical in our house is Comet Cleanser, and that's so we just don't keep things. And we got some hydrogen peroxide for sterilizing, hydrogen peroxide and vinegar for sterilizing, and that's so it's actually trying to keep a clean environment. You look under our cupboards. There's nothing. There's nothing. There's no chemical. There's no cleaners or anything underneath there. And it's and watching what you buy. Just you try to stay healthy, and then also stay out of the city.
I was going to ask actually what it. I want to get back to talking a little bit more about the farm and certification and what you grow, but I wanted to ask you now what does it mean to you to farm organically on the same land your grandparents farmed? Maybe in the same way.
Well, yes, I've been living out there for so long. It does. I mean, I was fortunate with my grandma to provide the education and actually give us, So she passed away about 12 years ago. So the farm's in trust, and so my brother and I were the trustees, so we get to farm it basically for free, and we just pay the taxes on it. So. And so it's been setting for a couple of years, so we have nothing for sale. I mean, we have our own garden stuff, but that's it. We're not in business right now, so that's coming back here in the next future. So we're just
tell me the name of the business again.
Katona's Country Garden.
And is that your grandma's name? Katona. So when you started out taking over Katona's Country Garden, what did you guys grow? What were your practices? Where did you sell?
We just sold it on the farm. Never sold on the farm. We sold Bueller's, and there was a couple small farm markets in Barberton and Norton. We sold just like peppers and tomatoes, and then sold sweet corn to Hawkins Market, which we were no longer in business. So there were some people out there we were selling to conventional stuff because they weren't buying. They knew nothing about organic either. So
how did you deal with that market? Did you say, oh, by the way, we don't use chemicals just in case you want to put that on a sign? Or
they didn't care. They just wanted the product. I mean, you weren't paying. You're paying conventional prices for it because no one was selling organics back then. Like I said, the mustard seed were the first ones that started selling organic produce. And I mean, basically, in our area, that's who they were the only ones.
How did that change your operation or your market?
Well, it opened up the market because we had a lot more varieties that we sell. Potatoes, all kinds of potatoes, more varieties of tomatoes. So we actually can grow 36 varieties of tomatoes and 20 varieties of peppers, and then all kinds of lettuces and green beans and yellow beans and purple beans and cabbage and broccoli and cauliflower. So it just opened up the whole market. Lots of herbs. So it just opened up because there was nobody doing it. There was just very few people that were certified organic back then in this area. So it just opened up a good market for me.
And at that point, everything went to mustard seed or directly off farm sales.
Yeah. Pretty much, yeah. Then there was some small little store or restaurants were popping up here and there. So things, they're here today, gone tomorrow. So there's so many things have changed, and in the last, Well, then after 911 hit, a lot of small your health food stores just disappeared. Yeah, I was I started a CSA. I think my first CSA year was in 1998, and either 97 or 98. It was a neighbor. We wanted to start us. It was a neighbor lady, and she actually still buys from me now. So, so I started out with one person, and then went to 2, then went to 12, then to 24, then to 56. So.
And did you do farmers markets along the way?
I did them at one time, but I just it just wasn't for me. It was just I didn't like it. It just took too much time, too much traveling. I made better money without doing that. I made better money at wholesale. So there was no reason for me to do. I was traveling all over Cleveland, Alliance, Mansfield, Worcester, Canton, Massillon.
On how many acres?
We were probably just doing 21 tillable,
What were your practices?
organic.
Well, I mean, more specifically. Tell me a little
That's
bit
all
about.
natural. You just like anybody else. We grew rye as a plow down, and we still plowed in discs like everybody else did, but we didn't, we weren't using plastic yet, so we were still rototillering and cultivating with cultivators and tractors. We didn't start using plastic probably. Oh, I'd say probably 2001, maybe 2000. So we built all our own equipment. So we built our plastic layer, we built our water wheel, we built all that stuff.
What do you mean when you say you built it?
We built it. We built it out of junk. Everybody else was buying all this brand new stuff. We just, we had old farm equipment, so we just chopped it up and cut it up, just built it, welded it all back together, and bought a couple things. And I mean, that's farming 101. I mean, I don't know. We grew up building things. We built a gravity wagon. We built all our hay wagons. We did. That's what we did. I mean, there's certain things you had to buy, like a tractor and a baler. But when it comes to certain other things, there's plenty of scrap metal laying around, and so we were mechanics. So it was fun.
What was the response of other people in the county? Because it seems like at the time, from what you're
Oh,
saying.
they thought we were crazy.
Okay.
Well, what's very interesting is a lot of them, the farmers around me would watch, actually paid attention. So when I started plowing, they start plowing, or certain things I would do, they'd watch me because or actually because we were organic, our land was different. Mine dried out faster and it held water more, so it was just a different. It was just our land was different.
Were there other veggie farmers in the area, conventional or organic?
There was just a few people doing garlic and not much. There really wasn't. People just doing roadside stuff. So there really wasn't. I was the biggest in the area right there. So.
Can you tell me a little bit about the certification process through OFA, that decision, and any impacts it had?
Oh, I'm glad I was certified because it actually I was actually getting farmers. What's being certified organic does is actually you get paid for your vegetables. They're not paying you for depression prices, and that's what's happening. It's people say, oh, it's overpriced. No, it's not. We deserve to get paid for our product, and that's what the organic industry has done. We're not getting depression prices for corn and grain and vegetables. That's what they were paying for grain back in the depression years. We're getting paid for quality. Anything you buy, you could either buy a piece of junk or you could buy the quality part. Where you buy it once, you don't have to buy it again, or else you can just buy a piece of junk where you use it a couple of times and it's broke. So you can keep doing that, and that's the same with bad food, and and it's they can say all they want, but it's all about life. Life begots life. Life in the soil. It's the healthier your soil, the healthier you are. So. And now, about 12, 14 years ago, they actually technology has caught up to us, and now there's so much going on in the soil that we never knew about. And that's one of the reasons why I came over to here to work with Dean and learn some no-till farming, because I wanted to know a little bit more about what's in their soil and things that we've been doing wrong all these years. Yeah, we thought we were doing it right, but I thought, no, we're not.
So have parts of your practices changed over
Oh
the
yeah. Yeah. So now, I've been working on that since 2008, learning different practices and trying to do more no-till and less tillage. Trying to leaving with the vegetables. It's a lot easier. Small vegetables gardens, so leaving strips in between smaller, narrower, smaller fields. Instead of doing something 200 feet wide, doing things like 25 foot wide and leaving 15 feet of grass. So letting life migrate, keeping the soils healthier. Because actually, they say some of your soil life will migrate 3 yards a month. So basically, by the time so if you're migrating from both sides, you're actually got new life in your soils that you've killed with the rototiller or killed with the disc or the plow.
How'd you come across some of those ideas?
People like Rudolf Steiner and l.r.h. and just a lot of different reading people, scientists over the years, soil scientists, and just start putting two and two together and just reading articles and see what other people were doing, and just kind of added a few more of my other things, things learned a lot on my own, and you could see it. You could see it in your crops, also.
Do you remember any more about your early involvement in OFA? Did you go to any conferences?
Oh yeah, yeah, almost every conference. Yeah.
You still go?
I didn't this last year. Or the year before I went. So.
What's the OFA network been like for you over the years?
I don't do clicks very well, so I don't hang with too many other people. I just kind of sit back and watch and voice my opinion when it needs to be. But I don't go to a lot of meetings. Just to conferences. About all, and anymore I just go down there to mingle with friends. I don't send in too many workshops. Once in a while I do if it's an interesting one that I want to do. But
I'm curious about those, like the friends you meet with at OFA. Back when you started, obviously I think Dean was here doing what he was doing. Who were the other people around the state that you felt like were kindreds in trying to be a part of this movement?
McIlvaine. He's probably been a good friend of mine, and then a few other people that I don't run into too much anymore, but they're all out there. We're coming the old people now, so. And I bump into here and there all over the place, so. You meet a lot of different people, and some people I don't remember their names. It's like, well, okay, oh yeah, I remember now. Because I don't see them all the time like I used to. Especially dropping out of the vegetables and then hanging around with Dean. So I kind of switched people. We're hanging around the grain guys, and so I didn't see many of the vegetable people. So
you guys still? Do you think when you take the farm back from rest, you'll still do veggies, or you're going to switch to grain?
No, we're too small to do grain. So we might just do some specialty stuff, but we'll go back into vegetables. There's some new restaurants coming about, so that's what we've been kind of waiting. For more, one of the bad parts about it too, you either have to go clear into the city, and it's kind of, and then there's so much urban garden going on around too, and then a lot of times they only buy so much, it's like, if I'm going to the city, I'd like to go in there and sell at least $500 every time I go, which years ago it was like a $2,500 carload, and that's after 911 that stopped.
Why? Why do you think the connection is?
I have no idea. People were scared, holding their money. Some people, organic was it was a fad. It wasn't a lifestyle as much. Which people probably thought it was, but when things get tight, I could pay half. When money gets tight and you're scared and you want to hold money in this and that, you're gonna go back and eat garbage. It's happened to all of us. So.
I'm curious if you could tell me a little bit over the years from when you started till now about the people who have been requesting your food, whether it's the wholesalers or whether it's individuals you sell to, how that's changed.
I think there's individual people. I still get old members have been members, 15 years ago. Are you going back? And I said, no, not right now. They still call and they still want it. And I've had some really good people that were really hard, die-hard organic people. But as things go, people I didn't have drop-off points, so they were forced to come out to the farm. Well, now there's other people who go into the city, so they've joined those people into the city. So it made it harder and harder for me to get members to come out to the farm because I'm 30 minutes from everybody, and that's people don't like that.
When you tried out the CSA model, where did you look to for inspiration or to figure out how to make that work?
I read the book. They actually wrote had a book out.
CSA book.
CSA book, yeah. Well, see, this all migrated from Europe. See, basically, what the CSA was originally started out was to get cash money instead of going to the bank. So basically, it was a promotion to get cash money, so you didn't have to borrow money. And then it was all about fresh. Pick that morning. You pick it that morning, and people picked it up in the afternoon. That's what it was. That's what the CSAs were all. Not picking up, throwing it in the cooler, and then like the stores. Is about getting fresh, is what the CSA was all about, and giving the farmer money.
Were a lot of other people doing it in Ohio at that time?
There's a few. There's a few people out there that have been as long as I have. It started right around when I did, and but they've been farming for a long time. But there's still quite a few out there right now. I don't think there are as many. I mean, it's kind of gone. It's starting to disappear because in all the farmers markets, people want to be able to choose. They don't want to have to open up their bag. What did I get today? So, if I ever would do it again, it would be we'd have a farm stand, CSA, where basically they would come in and pick their own. We every morning we'd pick and put it on display, so they could go in there and choose, grab the tomato they want. I don't want that tomato. I want that one over there. So that's the way I would do it.
What is in the future?
I don't know.
Well, I mean, not globally, but I mean, for the farm. What do you want to happen?
I don't know. That's something me and my brother are going to talk about this fall. So we can see what kind of plans we're going to have for next year. It's either do something or sell.
So it's resting for the Jewish 7th year, but it's also been resting before that.
It's been resting for 2 years. See, this Shemitah started 2 years ago, so.
And it runs for.
It'll be up this fall, Shemitah,
Okay.
basically.
Okay. And you've done that the whole time you've been farming.
Yeah.
I'm interested in that choice because it's a cultural choice, but it also seems like it has some financial impacts. You're not making money from the farm that year.
Well, what it really does, it actually see there was a man, soil scientist from he was organic. His name was John Tobe from Canada, and one of the things he believed in is remineralizing your farm through weeds. See, that's one thing about weeds do. Weeds have long tap roots. They remineralize your soil. And see, that's one of the problems with conventional farming. They don't grow weeds, so they don't get the long, deep tap roots, and they're always so their agriculture really isn't being remineralized naturally. They're bringing in it's all artificial. So, I mean, there's so many studies out there, but it's all big money. So, I mean, how do you prove anything? And there really hasn't been really hardcore studies that were just long-term studies that are credible. Because you still got a lot of money. It's all about money. So, but when you look at examples like me and my stepson, he's healthy as a horse also. And because we eat good food. My wife, she never misses. She hardly misses any work because once in a while she does, but she grew up in the suburbs, so they never ate as well as we did. So it's about what you eat.
I'm curious if you, at any point in your farming career, did you work with extension at all, or with?
I did. I did a project here about 4 years ago, doing the no-till project.
Tell me about that.
It was one of the things that, well, it was kind of educational for me because they were actually doing the no-till. I mean, I guess they said, here, do the no-till. So basically they threw it at you and it's like, well, how do we do it? You know, so I mean, it was, so we had to kind of learn on our own or figure out on our own. Well, after the first year, I figured it out. I said, man, it's all about making sure you have a 5-year plan or something, you know, and, so it's not as easy as you think it is. So, you know, me and Dean, we made a lot of mistakes working with no-till. So it was a kind of an experience. But it's a tough thing to do. But
what does no-till look like in vegetable production? Give me a sense.
basically, you grow rye and hairy vetch, and you roll it, you kill it, you let it get real tall, and you roll it down and kill it, and then use that as weed prevention. You know, it's a lot easier in vegetables. And,
Thank you.
It's really easy in vegetables because then, you know, because you can actually, you know, you have time to plant your, you know, like tomatoes and peppers and all your winter squash and your summer squash and
you plant the starts directly into the
right into the
dried veg.
into dry vetch and dry rye because it actually creates a mat because weeds need sunlight to germinate. So you smother them. You make it dark. And one good thing about that, it also keeps the soil about 40 degrees cooler and holds more moisture. So,
Do you have other farmers you know doing vegetable production like that, no-till?
they know nothing about it.
Just you.
There's a few people doing. There's a few people around, but it's not real popular because it's not, you know, it was all promoted for big ag. You know, it wasn't promoted for your little backyard gardener or your small farmer. You know.
What excites you about the idea of small scale no-till veggie production?
Less labor. You don't have to weed. You don't have to cultivate. You just plant, roll, crimp, and plant and pick. You know, green beans, cabbage, broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts. You can do it, you know. And then once your plants get big enough, you know, your tomatoes, if you give your plants plenty of time, they'll actually bush out and so you don't have to worry about weeds. They'll smother everything. So, but what it does, it gives you time, and it's an alternative to plastic.
So you guys were using plastic.
Yeah, well, we gave up plastic probably 10 years ago.
How come?
Too expensive to buy, too expensive and it was destroying our soils. Yeah, we used it off and on from 2000 to 2008, kind of off and on, you know. So.